I stood alone on the low stage, the harsh fluorescent lights thick on my skin. The auditorium of Fundação Oriente in Lisbon was half lit, everyone's faces disappearing into darkness, while the panel at the front sharpened in my sight like a row of judges. My fingers gripped the clicker as if I could choke hope from plastic. The title slide of my documentary, Chelas, Skin and Stories, glowed behind me in bold, unfamiliar English. I'd rehearsed, God knows how many times. I'd said these words to the mirror, to the cracked tiles above our kitchen sink, even whispered them to the pigeons outside my grandmother's flat, hoping they'd carry a little luck in their wings. But now, as silence expanded around me, it all felt pitifully inadequate. My mouth twitched into a brittle smile. Good afternoon. My name is Tiago Monteiro. I want to tell a story about where I come from. About the real lives of people in Chelas, one of the most misunderstood neighborhoods in Lisbon. I believe a documentary can. From the second row, a man in a starched navy shirt cleared his throat, loudly. Another adjusted her glasses, gaze hazed with impatience. For a beat, no one said a word, and the emptiness filled the room. I heard again my uncle's voice on endless evenings. A sério, Tiago? Vai ser cineasta agora? Vais passar fome. Isso não é para gente como nós. I am not sure if it was his echo or my own self-doubt that swelled behind my ribs. I continued. Voice steady but thinner. I clicked to the first sample clip. An old woman, Dona Teresa, hunched on the stoop of her apartment, laughing as she shelled peas, talking about nights when music floated up from windows and the air smelled of laundry. The volume was just a little too low, the image a little too shaky. The panelist in the middle, a woman with silver hoop earrings, watched impassive, arms folded. There was no spark, not even a spark of polite curiosity. When the last slide landed, a quote from a local rapper scrawled on a wall, Quem não sente não entende. The brief silence that followed felt like the aftermath of a car crash. The lead investor spoke first. Obrigado, Thiago. Your passion is clear, but the scope feels small. What's your expected reach? I fumbled with statistics. Voices overlapped. The market for urban documentaries is saturated. Well, do you have industry references? Why this neighborhood again? I stood there, heat burning up my face, wishing I could melt and slide between the cracks in the floor. They eventually thanked me, and I mustered whatever dignity I had left, offering thin smiles as I snaked my way off stage. Outside, the river air slapped me. My cousin Luis waited for me, hands stuffed into the front pockets of his knockoff jeans. He grinned, a little too wide, sarcasm seeping before he even opened his mouth. How was your show, Spielberg? He said, voice pitched for anyone within earshot. I shoved past him. Vai te lixar, Luis. Was just asking, pa. Maybe you can film my life next, about a guy with a useless degree sleeping on his grandma's couch. He cackled, while others nearby smiled knowingly, whispers trailing as my sneakers smacked down the steps. I felt rage clench my jaw, then loosen, the useless kind you swallow because you're too tired for another fight. My phone buzzed. My mother, naturally. Call me when it's done, Hiyu. Don't forget groceries. Even her faith in my dream sounded like a reminder to buy milk. Lisbon in late spring. Gold light shuddering off the Tagus, groups of students shouting from the tram stops, mopeds buzzing by. The city seemed to barrel forward, everyone else knowing exactly where they were headed, while my feet lived in two worlds. The one my family believed in, and the one I ached to make real. If I ever doubted why I needed to make this documentary, all it took was walking down the main street of Chelas, past the spray-painted shutters and the old men smoking in plastic chairs. People turned to look when you carried a camera, sometimes with suspicion, but mostly with a strange, quiet hope. Even at 17, I could sense everyone longed to be seen, and yet doubted if anyone truly could. It was a skepticism I understood. My father had spent his life laying tile and patching cement, fingers always dusty, knuckles split, his ambitions ground down by the city. When he was dying, I tried to tell him about my ideas. He snorted, poked at the television. Dreams don't put food on the table, Filho, but stories, maybe stories, keep you alive after. He didn't smile, but his words nagged at me, stubborn as weeds. I moved steadily through university, scraping through scholarships and late-night shifts at the Santa Apollonia terminal. I filmed everything. Market stalls at dawn, soccer games in grimy lots, grandmothers hanging laundry, rappers scrawling rhymes on the walls. It was messy, but it was mine. Then, after that investor pitch bombed, the whispers sharpened. My aunt at every family meal, to no one in particular. Tiago, what is his plan? Maybe he'll be on TV asking for coins. My mother, offering casseroles instead of conversation, sometimes patting my hand with a mixture of worry and pity. Even old friends seemed embarrassed for me, like I was carrying a sickness they worried might be contagious. I let it build inside me, the humiliation, the rage, the heartbreak, knowing that sooner or later it would have to go somewhere. At night, I edited in the bathroom. It was the only place with a lock where I could focus, the fan humming to mask my fatigue. My equipment was ancient, a second-hand Sony Handycam, a battered notebook for storyboards, and a borrowed laptop with keys rubbed blank by years of use. I emailed everyone, producers, YouTubers, professors who barely remembered my name. Each time I received rejections so polite they stung. Still, I filmed. Sometimes, instead of sleep, I'd hike up to the Miradoro da Senhora de Monte, look over the city's lights, and tell myself, one day, this story will be on screens across Lisbon. They'll have to see us. But those words felt colder and more ridiculous the more time passed. 2 years after that first disastrous pitch, I was almost ready to quit. My bank account was hollowed out, and my confidence had withered. Luis, still jobless, had moved into the spare room, where he sighed theatrically and played drill beats at unnecessary volumes. One night, the apartment smelled of burnt chorizo and anger. My mother was watching a telenovela when Luis started in again. So, Tiago, you get rich yet? Going to cons, yeah? Or maybe just going to Aldi for more discount tuna? I snapped. At least I'm trying, Luis. All you do is take up space. He muttered. Yeah, keep dreaming, filmmaker. Something inside me recoiled. Was I really just a stubborn fool? That night I nearly deleted everything. But instead, I remembered Dona Teresa, her hands trembling as she showed me old photographs. Smiling that sad smile, the one that says I was young once too. I remembered the rapper, Vitor, rapping verses about escape on the crumbling basketball court. They had let me into their lives, trusted me to share their world. I owed them. I uploaded the finished cut, not to any Portuguese film fund, but to an obscure documentary subreddit, just to get it out. A week passed. I drowned in job applications and interviews for retail gigs I didn't want. Then, an email came. Hi, Tiago. This is Sabine from Docs Without Borders. Your film submission is beautiful. We would like to screen it at our summer showcase in Berlin and help pitch for distribution in broader European territories. Do you have a press kit? I read it 3 times, expecting it to vanish. The knave didn't mean much to me, but they were real. And for the first time, someone outside my postcode said I was onto something. I went. My mother and Luis rolled their eyes. My aunt laughed on the phone. In Berlin, they'll probably think you're the cleaner, she joked, voice brittle with amusement. As Schöneberg Kino, my little documentary played on a legitimate screen. The audience, older, curious, mostly strangers, leaned forward. They laughed where I'd hoped. They held still, watching the faces I'd grown up with. Afterward, people came to hug me, buy me watery wine, ask if I had more work. For one slanted hour, I was not a joke. My community was not a punchline. I cried in the bathroom, face slick and hot, hands shaking. That was the start. Sabine helped me find distribution for the film with a French streaming service. The emails and calls began to trickle. A Spanish producer offered to co-fund my next project. Suddenly, the version of myself I'd been defending, the one everyone mocked, was no longer hypothetical. I spent a year traveling, making short films in Marseille, Naples, Barcelona, commissioned, paid work. I grew sharper, more sure. My name, now and then, appeared in festival brochures. I didn't dare tell my family half of it at first. I kept waiting for everything to collapse, to be revealed as an imposter. But instead, more doors opened. I was invited to screen documentaries in Lisbon, a festival run not by international tastemakers, but local organizers determined to reclaim the city's stories from glossy travel brochures. They asked me finally to present my work at Fundação Oriente, the very place where I had first been dismissed. It felt like a strange, electric full circle, as if the city itself was daring me to try again. Lisbon felt different now, wider, more forgiving, yet still threaded with old pain. The tram lines shuddered up Avenida Almirante Reis as I rode toward the water. Headphones stuffed in my ears, I brushed past tourists and old schoolmates at Arroyos. Watching the city shift layer by layer, each memory folding into the next. The festival banners hung across the port of Lisbon. Your city, in your words, brilliant blue and yellow. My film's title, now subtitled on the posters, looked new, official. I texted my mother, not expecting much. She wrote back, "Luis and I are coming. Don't make a fool of yourself. Bring a jacket. It's cold by the river." The night of the premiere, the sky was sullen with clouds.